Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris McMahon, and today's video we are going to talk all about sugar. Before we dive into things, I want to just make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, you have notifications turned on, you ask any questions you might have, you give a thumbs up if you find this video helpful. Also, if you have no idea where to get started with fat loss, with nutrition, any of it, just click the link below and you'll get my ultimate fat loss guide, which is guaranteed to help you see results without doing stupid things you see on the internet. This is a question that one of my clients brought up in their check-in, and I just thought it would be really helpful because it's not the first time I've heard a question like this. Talk to me about sugar. I had more sugar than usual this week with my wife's birthday, and I felt like I've been craving sugar and sweets all week, way more than usual. Is this just my sweets addiction getting fueled, or is there some sort of waterfall effect with sugar and in how the body functions? There are so many differing opinions on sugar, but if you look at all the research and everything, you cannot be addicted to sugar. If that was true, you would see people snorting lines of sugar in their kitchen. It is totally possible to be addicted to food and eating, but mainly because food is used as a coping mechanism. It's a learned behavior that helps someone deal with things that are too hard within their life. If we want to look at it from an addiction standpoint, there's that little dopamine release, all that, but that's not from one singular food group. And it's because they have a hard time recognizing that feeling of being full, or they really need the comfort of being full to feel safe. And that's a coping mechanism for whatever else is going on in their life. Now, if you feel like you fall into that category of someone who has terrible binges, of someone who cannot stop eating, before we go any further, I highly suggest seeing a therapist who specializes in eating disorders. This is something that is out of my scope of practice. If I have someone who comes to me with any sort of binge eating disorder or any other disordered eating patterns, oftentimes I will refer out to a food therapist who specializes in this area. If that's not you and you're just like, I'm addicted to sugar, it's a problem for me, then watch the rest of this video. For that client, they are someone who has been losing weight. They are someone who considers themselves to have a sweet tooth. They are someone who is very active. They own a farm. So they're literally moving around and grooving around and doing all this stuff. And they feel like they're addicted to sugar. But if we actually look at it, most individuals who are struggling with sugar addiction, they're not just eating sugar. Sugar in and of itself is harmless. It's a carbohydrate. There's nothing really that we would have to technically worry about. From a fat loss point of view, if we're consuming a lot of sugar, it just means our carbohydrates are higher. And if we're in a calorie surplus, then we're going to gain weight. If we're at calorie maintenance, then we're going to stay the same weight. So it's usually not just sugar alone. It's a combination of carbohydrates and fats. When our carbohydrates and fats are mixed together, it is a highly palatable food. So if we think about like a donut, ice cream, cake, it's not sugar. It's the combination of fat mixed with carbs that is so palatable and makes our brain so happy that we want more of it because we don't actually get full from it. We are in a fat loss phase. The first thing someone might do is cut out all of those things that they enjoy in and of itself. All of the sugar, because they think sugar is what's making them gain weight. And when you remove something to that point and don't allow yourself to have it at all, when you do have it, it's more likely you're like, well, I can never have this again, so I'm going to overconsume. And then we kind of get a case of the fuck it's and we might keep going. Or then we get a case of where we're going to fall off our diet, be like, it's impossible to get back on track. What's the point anyway? So one thing I suggest a lot of my clients do is actually plan for those things, right? Have them. You have full permission to have those things. You have full permission to have those sweets, to have those things. They're not off limits, right? Now we can look at two ends of this. Someone who's eating these things every single day and not tracking, well, then we have to say, let's track, let's see what's going on. It might be a matter of removing the thing out of the house, and if you really want, let's say, a chocolate cookie, then go to your favorite baker and get one chocolate cookie. Bring it back home, enjoy it. Take the time to savor the thing. But if we're at the other end of the spectrum, where it's like, I'm not even hungry right now and I'm trying to eat these things, then we have to consider that we need to do a better job of asking ourselves two very important questions. Question number one is, I have full permission to eat this right now, but will I enjoy it? Will I enjoy it? Like, I'm not saying like, you won't enjoy cake. Cake is amazing, but if you're already full, if you're not hungry to begin with, and you eat the cake, are you going to feel good? Physically, mentally, emotionally? Think about that and answer it for yourself, because most likely if you ask yourself the question of, am I hungry? You'll have three things you have to check through. Do I have a hollow feeling in my stomach? Is the feeling only increasing over time? And am I hungry for a meal or for a snack? Am I hungry for like a chicken and rice and beans and some guacamole? Am I hungry for that? Or am I just hungry for a fucking piece of cake? Because when you're hungry for that thing, that's a craving, and cravings are normal. And that's where a lot of the addiction comes in. We think we have this addiction, but what we're experiencing is a food craving. And cravings look a little different. They don't appear in our stomach as a hollow feeling. They can appear as a headache. They can appear as like boredom. It could be any other emotion that you're experiencing. It could be exhaustion. And it increases and decreases over time. It's like this wave. And when we give ourselves enough time, that feeling actually goes away. It's called riding an emotional wave. If we can ride the emotional wave, then we'll have an easier time letting that feeling pass. But if we only dwell and stand in our pantry looking at the sweet thing, well, it's much harder to actually use a different coping mechanism. It's a learned behavior. It could have started when you were a kid, could have started as an adult. It could have started at any point in your life where you found that it was helpful for you to have a little something sweet because it made you a little happy in an effort to get away from whatever feeling you were having. On the other side of it, my client, they're someone who's doing a ton of manual labor. They're someone whose sleep was slightly askew. It's hotter out. So of course they're going to crave sweets more. Their protein was down a little lower. If we're hitting ample protein, we're hitting fiber, you will find that your sweet cravings do decrease because you're actually full. And then it's a matter of sitting with that feeling and giving yourself like 10 to 15 to 20 minutes to go do something else. And then the feeling suddenly goes away because we're okay with whatever we're experiencing, whether that be exhaustion. We have to actually look at what's happening behind the scenes. Am I more stressed? How is my sleep? Am I feeling a ton of other emotions that I'm not really dealing with in the proper way? If we're able to actually notice and name the thing we're feeling, it's going to be easier for us to separate from the need to grab the thing initially. Now that's hard, but we have to break the chain in a series of events. The donut really isn't the starting point. The 3 pieces of chocolate cake isn't the starting point. There's something else that happens that triggers that action. And if we can notice that action, notice what caused us to do it, then we can be a little more productive with this and actually figure out a game plan for ourselves. So that's really what we have to look at when it comes to sugar. Now, the other side of it is, what are you doing during the day for your fat loss when it comes to sugar? Is it that we're thinking about it all day? Are we hungry all day? Are we limiting the amount of calories we're eating so we can eat more in the evening? That's when we usually have our dessert, right? So step number 1 is, let's actually keep an honest food log of what we're eating, how much we're eating, when we're eating. Track it. If you're going to eat the sweet, track it. Track it before it even enters your mouth. If we're tracking it, you're going to see it. If you're going to see it, then you realize that it's not unintentional. You're making the decision to have it versus feeling like I have no control over it. No one's shoveling that food, that sweet, down your mouth. We make the choice to have it for whatever reason. And you're not bad or good because of that choice. But it is something that you have to know there's choice and there are habits. And if we can notice our habits, then we have an easier time, easier is a relative word here, making different choices. So let's keep an honest food log. Write down everything that enters your mouth. Anything and everything. Do it for the next 7 days. You could track your calories if that's something you like or something you're used to doing. It's going to be helpful for you. So you can actually see and notice how much you're having and when you're having. I recommend doing the other side of this and writing down what happened right before you ate the thing. Because then you can look at it and be like, okay, this happened. Someone really made me mad. Or I just did 12 hours of yard work. I'm really, really tired. Maybe I should eat a meal. Because number 2 is, we're going to make sure we're eating at least 3 balanced plates and 2 snacks per day. If we're skipping meals, we're gonna have those little cravings. We're gonna have the things that we go and grab at because we're actually fucking hungry, right? But we're not paying attention to that hunger. We're only thinking about the craving that's happening from all the other stuff that's going on, the foods that you're limiting. So 3, balanced plates. A balanced plate will have protein on it. It'll have fruits and vegetables. It'll have healthy fats. It'll have carbohydrates, preferably fibrous carbohydrates that'll help keep you full longer. Now, do we have to get in the nitty-gritty of this, what a size plate you're eating? No. You want to be eating more than a baby bird, but you want to be eating less than the Jolly Green Giant. You want to just have a balanced plate. You want breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If we have ample protein at each of those meals and fiber at each of those meals, we're going to be full. It's going to help us stay full between meals and have less sugar cravings, most likely. Between meals, we can have what we call a deliberate snack. Now, a deliberate snack is exactly what it sounds like. It's an intentional snack. We know that between breakfast and lunch, you get a little snacky. We know that between lunch and dinner, we get a little snacky. So let's have there be 2 snacks so we are tracking ahead of time. I would prefer those 2 snacks to be protein or fiber. That could be a piece of fruit. That could be, if we're looking at fiber, fruit. It could be some veggies, if that's the thing you enjoy. It could be protein. It could be Greek yogurt. It could be a protein shake. It could be some cheese, whatever it is. Ideally, if you mix protein and fiber together, you will be full longer. So if you have like a protein shake and a piece of fruit, that's going to hold you over until your next meal. If you have some Greek yogurt and some fruit, it's going to hold you over to your next meal. Now, if you're worried about the sugar in fruit, no one ever got fat from eating too much fruit. Sorry. That's just the truth of it. So don't fear any dingus on the internet who tells you to be afraid of sugar in fruit. We don't have to be afraid of sugar in general because if we're following the 3 plates and 2 snacks, and we're also noticing when we're eating and why we're eating, then it becomes easier for you to distinguish when it's an emotion. If we can start to give ourselves enough space with that emotion, then it becomes that much easier to make a different decision. Suddenly, you're more empowered to make the decision that's going to work best for you in that situation. If you just ignore it and sweep it under the rug, well, then we stay in the same pattern. Pattern interruption is hard. Urge surfing is what we're really talking about. And it's being able to be present with whatever feeling we're having until it dissipates. And the best way to do that is to get involved in what's happening right now. That could be getting up and going for a walk. That could be calling a friend and telling them what you're dealing with or just catching up with them. It could be listening to music. It could be going and doing your workout. It could be so many different things, but they're all different forms of self-care that allow you to be present. You can't be absent if you're having a conversation with someone. If you are, it's very apparent. So having that awareness helps that feeling start to dissipate. Because like I said, it's a wave. And the longer we let that wave go, eventually it flatlines. Versus hunger, where hunger only is going to intensify. And if we're trying to ignore it, you're eventually going to feel it. Like you're really going to feel it in the stomach. And that's hard to ignore. There's the difference. So, is sugar something you should be afraid of? No. Can you be addicted to sugar? No. Can you be using sugar and food in general as a coping mechanism? Yes. That is a learned behavior, but it's something you can start to break if you follow the steps that I laid out in this video. And if you want any other help, you're like trying to lose fat, you want to get your fitness in check, and you just need a little more help, then all you got to do is drop your email address below, click the link, put your email address, you'll get my fat loss guide, and I promise to send you my best content right to your inbox. Fat loss tips, training tips, science-based nutrition and training advice that is bullshit-free and guaranteed to help you lose weight without losing your mind. So without further ado, I want you to remember to subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, give a thumbs up if you found this video helpful, and leave a comment below with any other questions you have about fat loss, about training, about sugar addiction, anything, and I'm more than happy to answer. So remember, you're one day away from getting back on track, and one day away from realizing how fucking amazing you are.